Hello and welcome to the Greatest Games podcast, brought to you by 816 Basketball. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Rosefield, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris de Blasio.
How's it going today, Brian?
Oh, fantastic. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing well. For those of you not familiar with the Greatest Games podcast, is a chance for us to catch up with basketball coaches from around the country and have them tell us about their greatest games they were a part of as a coach. As always, we don't put any limits on them. It could be when they were an assistant coach, a freshman coach, a CYO coach. It can be a win, a loss, a championship game, whatever they consider to be their greatest game.
Well, I'm ready to get started, so let's go ahead and welcome on in our guest for today, Coach Dan Egerow, who just completed his third season as the head boys basketball coach at Cresskill High School in Cresskill, New Jersey. Welcome in, Coach.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I coached at Cresskill once.
We didn't cross paths, though.
Dan was an outstanding player at Cresskill for legendary local coach Marty Rivard, and then is now taking over at his alma mater. So that's got to be very prideful for you, Dan.
I take a lot of pride in Cresskill, and I appreciate you saying I was an outstanding player. But let's not joke here. I was average at best.
Average at best puts you way ahead of Brian and I.
Absolutely. That goes without saying.
Coach, why don't you just go through your resume a little bit, where you've coached and how long you've been coaching?
Okay, so I'll start at the beginning. I first started coaching. I jumped right into a JV coach at Northern Valley Demarest High School. I was there for 3 years. Got to coach with Joe Dionisio, which was tremendous experience for me. After that, I moved back to Cresskill, and I became the JV coach there for 2 seasons under Mike Dodo. Then when Coach Dodo moved on to Paramus Catholic, where he's at now, I was fortunate enough to be named the head coach at Cresskill. So this was my 3rd season as the head basketball coach at Cresskill.
Good stuff. So you're still young in the game. You're still young in general.
I'd like to think so, but through some of these games, they're making me tremendously older.
That'll certainly happen, and I know this is bad radio, but I tell you what, I can tell you the gear up at Cresskill, that Nike that Nike pullover, is you got them going in the right direction with that too. That's fantastic there.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I always got to rep my Cresskill Cougars.
That's right.
They had a nice. You guys had that nice gray. The kids had like a gray warm up. Like a sweatsuit, or was it a sweatshirt? That it wasn't that one that you're wearing. It was a different one. I saw them at the state game. A bunch of them had it on.
Yeah, each year the seniors get to pick kind of what clothing order they want to do. So, I kind of put it on them, try to put my own little spin on it, but usually it gets marked down pretty fast.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like, I feel like I have an idea of like, oh, that's going to go. Kids are going to love that. And it's usually the complete opposite of what I think. Like, I'm looking for like a small, classy logo, something like that. And kids are like, no, we want big on the front. Like, I'm usually 100% wrong when it comes to gear.
It's without fail, it's always the opposite of what I either think or what I even want. So
that's good that you just put it on them then. You guys choose. You guys go ahead. It's your gear.
Well, otherwise, then no one's going to be buying anything.
Right. All right, Coach, we're going to do a little Q&A segment here to start off with. Coach Rosefield, why don't you go ahead and pick a question?
All right. Well, this is a question I've been wanting to ask for a while here because I can remember my first one. But, Coach, do you remember your first technical foul and what led up to it and your feeling when it happened of, like, just your first technical foul?
It's so funny that you asked that because this is one of my favorite coaching stories that I have. When I was the JV coach at Demarest, we were kind of getting beat up a little bit, and we had no life. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get a tee on purpose, and kind of get them motivated, get a little excitement going. Mm-hmm. And it kind of worked. That I purposely get teed up. I pushed it too far, and I even told the ref afterwards. I was like, just do it, So I get it, but here's the best part is, we make this comeback at Demarest for the JV team, and we come back, and I don't know the exact ending, but I want to say it got down to 5 or 3 points. A pretty close game where we had a chance. And afterwards, all the guys were like, man, Coach, if we didn't get that team, we might have had a chance. just completely over their heads of what I had tried to do to help out.
Right, right, right. No, it's
Like you said, whatever you say, the kids say the opposite. So
yep.
it's
Case in point, right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Coach, what led you to becoming a high school basketball coach? Why did you want to become a high school basketball coach?
That's a great question, Chris. I would say for me personally, it's like I kind of wanted to give back. I was really inspired by the coaches that I had myself. Having played for Coach Rivard, who's the winningest coach at Cresskill in Bergen County history. That was a tremendous honor seeing all that he sacrificed for us. Mike Burke was a big influence in my life. He was our assistant coach at Cresskill. And he was a guy that volunteered and just kind of rubbed off on me. But then guys from other sports that I ran track in high school. So Rich Miller was a guy that had coached his entire life. And he was, someone that I'd looked up to. And if I needed someone to talk to, he was there. And then finally, Kevin Quinn. All these are Cresskill coaches. Kevin's the head football coach at Cresskill now. I was fortunate enough that he was my first coach at Cresskill that coached me. And now he's my colleague where we coach track together. So, those guys had just a tremendous influence on me where they really helped me out throughout high school. And, I kind of wanted to give back to that high school experience and kind of be that for hopefully someone else.
Yeah, and I'll speak personally, Brian. The three people that he mentioned are great coaches, and each one of them is a better person. Marty Rivard, Rich Miller, and Kevin Quinn. So they are outstanding role models for any kids that played for them. And, you see one of them here who's went on to become a coach.
Yes, this is kind of a common theme. That it's not kind of, it is a common theme that we've seen through these interviews here, and even obviously coaches that we've known, that it's really not. Everybody wants to win, everybody wants to compete, but it's like what you just said, Dan, is about wanting to give back what was freely given to us and being able to do it while coaching, especially at your alma mater. It's got to be a real thrill.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. As you said, it's still exciting to compete, and it's great to be able to get back out there. But the daily interactions and the relationships that you have with your players, that's really the end goal. That's really kind of what matters the most.
So I'll tell you what, I had a belief when I first got into coaching that I had all the X's and O's figured out, that we were going to come in. I was coaching girls basketball as my first job out of college. We're going to win state championships because I just come off. I knew everything that I needed to know, X's and O's wise, and I quickly figured out that it was about relationships, that it was I needed to really invest in these girls and really care about them off the floor as well as on the floor. So that was a belief that quickly I learned wasn't really going to work for me. So the question for you is, was there some belief that you held coming into coaching that you quickly realized, or some way in the future, sometime down in the future, quickly realized like, yeah, that I was way off on that one?
It's a good point. I think that for me, similar to you, where it's like you know the X's and O's, and you feel like you're going to come in, you're going to really put your mark on the program, and you're going to kind of do your thing. But then you realize, like, especially in public schools, and at Cresskill, it's a Group 1 school, which is the smallest schools in New Jersey, that you're only given so much to work with, and you got to really tailor your style to what you have and what they can be successful at doing. So it's also trying to get them to buy in, have them believe in you, but you have to make them the most successful. So for me, that was the biggest learning curve, because I wanted to do something that was just so over the top. That was like, our guys could, as much as they wanted to do it, they didn't have the time to even invest in doing that. So it's just so funny, like how you go in with like this big plan, and quickly you're just adjusting on the fly.
Right.
What did you want to do? Like that Grinnell College, like just run and gun, everybody sub five guys every 5 minutes?
Yeah, right. Exactly. We were just going to throw the ball the length of the floor every single time, get up and down like 32 minutes of hell, basically.
All right, Brian. So Coach Egerow is one of the finest dressed coaches in the county.
Really?
So
now?
full suit, dressed to the nines. Do you pick out the outfit like the night before, depending on the game? Like, what goes into the outfit choice?
First of all, I'm going to concede that I am not the best dressed coach.
You're second best
That
behind
I'll take
Ramsey.
second best.
Behind Rock, you are second.
Yeah, absolutely. He is the best dressed coach, but second I'll take. The only thing that I do for the suit, and this was my big mistake, is game one of my first time being a head coach, I put the suit on. So then I set the precedent that I have to wear a suit for every game. But for me, the only thing is I just won't wear the opposing team's colors.
Okay.
That's my only kind of stipulation.
That's interesting. You said that you set the bar high. When I was coaching at Cresskill, when we had the freshman team that went to the freshman county finals, I was talking to my best friend, Brian. I was talking to Josh the night before the game, and I said, "Oh, I've picked out a suit for the game." And he said to me, "Have you worn a suit any other game this year?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Then why wear a suit tomorrow? It's just another game." He goes, "If you wear a suit, your kids are going to go, 'Oh my God, coach in a suit.' Just wear what you would normally wear." So, but you set it high with the suit, so you got to keep going.
Yeah, well, that's kind of exactly what happened with me. Is it just the opposite, though? Is that if I don't wear the suit, they're going to be like, well, coach doesn't care, so now I don't have to care.
Right. Well, you got to step it up with like a top hat or a monocle.
Maybe next time for the real big games, I'll wear a tuxedo.
I tell you what, it sounds like some pretty sound sports psychology advice from your friend Josh there too. I knew I loved him to death, but I tell you what, that was good advice. All right, Coach. Well, obviously the show is about the greatest games that you've ever been a part of. So at this point in time, we'd love to hear about the greatest game you've ever been a part of. You can give us as much information as you want about this game and why it's so special to you.
Okay, great. I'm sure that Chris will kind of remember this game. So my coaching career isn't that long, obviously, as head coach. It's only my third year. So this goes back to my first year. We had a tremendous senior class. I mean, I was very fortunate that I walked into a great situation where we were returning starters. We had, I think, 10 seniors in the program, with 6 of them that got to play. And we had won 19 games in a row. And that got us to the county quarterfinal game, which is played at Fairleigh Dickinson University, which is just getting there itself is tough enough, as Chris can attest to. But we were playing an equally, if not maybe superior, talented team in Hackensack. Hackensack is a Group 4 town here in New Jersey, so they're a huge town, 4 times the size of Cresskill. So, I mean, I think you could kind of think of it as almost like a Hoosiers-like moment for us in a small town versus the big boys, so to speak. And that game, I remember it just like it because it's on a college campus, a college floor. It was packed. You get a crowd of over 1,000 people, which is something that we don't see often, if at all. And our guys stood up to the challenge. And I had liked our seeding. We were the 6th seed and they were the 3 seed going into it. I thought our matchup was pretty fair. But I just didn't realize what the environment would be like and how our players would step up to it. And we went toe for toe with them. And I remember that game in that we were down going into the 4th quarter. And halfway through the 4th quarter, it became just a 1-point game and back and forth. And eventually we tied it up at 50-50 with 90 seconds left. And we had a bunch of opportunities to put the ball in the basket. And we didn't. But fortunately for us is that Hackensack didn't put the ball in the basket either. So the game went to overtime. And in overtime, we actually kind of dug ourselves a little bit of a hole. We were down like 55-50, 52-55 kind of range. And it got down to 25 seconds left. We were down 2 with the ball. And we had been running the same play over and over and over again. And so we went back to this high ball screen. And my point guard, George Sikoriak, this time, instead of using the screen, rejected it and drove opposite. And just so happened that in that opposite corner was our best player at the time, Luka Radovic, our best shooter. His man had jumped out to stop George's penetration to the basket. George made the simple pass to the corner. Luka caught it, and it was like every other shot that Luka shot. It was literally textbook form, hit nothing but net. with 3 seconds left in overtime, we went from down 2 to up 1, and it was like pandemonium. Luckily for us, they actually Hackensack called a timeout, which was probably, if I was in Coach Taylor's situation, I would have called a timeout as well. You need to stop the clock. But that gave my guys who were ecstatic, jumping up and down on the court, a chance to actually get back and play some defense.
Mm-hmm.
And so luckily for us, they had a last second, half court shot that hit the front of the rim. But we ended up beating Hackensack, and that got us into the Jamboree semifinals, which was the first time that Creskill's been there in over 20 years. It was also marked our 20th win in a row. And it was the first time the Group 1 school had been to the Jamboree semifinals in like 18 years as well. So, for us, like, the game itself was tremendous, but just the situation of the magnitude of it really, for me, put it over the top. Like, I'll just never forget that, especially being my first year. And those were guys that I had on my JV team 2 years ago, and seeing them now on like the biggest stage of Bergen County basketball, it was an extremely proud moment for me.
I tell you, you just elevated yourself, and in my world, you've referenced Hoosiers already. That's my all-time favorite movie. But I tell you what, I listened to that story. I appreciate you sharing all that. Going into the fourth quarter, you're down. You get down early in overtime games, and I've had teams that just get down quickly. Overtime's just like, it's a whole nother like time warp. Like, it's just like time stands still, but it goes by so quickly it's hard to describe. But what are you telling your guys in that moment, down early or down going into the fourth quarter, and then down early in overtime, and to get them over the hump? And I guess a follow up for that too, had they exhibited that type of gumption to kind of come back throughout the year? Or was that the first time you had seen it?
So I'll work backwards. So my team, as I said, was a senior-led team. We had 10 seniors on that team, and most of those guys played and started varsity the year before, and even a handful of them played varsity their sophomore years. So they were very seasoned, especially the big moments. I remember the year before, we went to the state sectional final, went to overtime and lost by 1. So they've been in situations like that. So for me, it was more about just making sure that we were staying calm, not to get too excited, not to get too high, too low. That's really kind of my biggest thing. I want my teams to be like. It's very easy to get super excited, especially in front of, that was the biggest crowd that we've ever played in front of at that time. So it was really hard for, I wanted to make sure that they just didn't get overwhelmed by the moment, and that really 5 points is still only 5 points. If you're down, it's not the end of the world. And if you're up 5 points, that's also, that's not a huge lead by any means either. It's trying to stay that even keel. But, at the same time, I'm telling them to stay calm and stay calm. I'm jumping up and down on the sidelines, running all over the place.
What Dan failed to mention as well, Brian, the Fairleigh Dickinson gym is located in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Okay.
So it was in the town of the bigger school. So it was almost like a home game for them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Chris. I didn't even put that together till now.
I can see the Rothman Center from my window. So, but that game, and Dan talked about the final play, and it was just one of those things where he had the ball in his point guard's hand, George Sikoriak, who was Brian, you would love to have coached a kid like George, just a kid who always made the right play. So, if you would have had what was that stupid movie with Adam Sandler, Click, where he could pause time? Right?
My number 2, I'm just kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
Another good reference.
If you would have paused time right when George started driving and said to Dan, is George going to make the pass to the open guy in the corner? It would have been 100% yes. The defense helped, and he just kicked it to the open guy in the corner. I mean, it was just the right play to be made, and it was the right play by a heady ball player.
And I got to add about this. I think George Skorek, anybody would love to coach.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, George is a great kid and a great player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should also mention this too, on Hackensack's team, 2 of their players went on to go play Division I basketball as well. So it's like they were such a talented team. And not saying that we weren't talented, but we just didn't have that level of talent on our team. And it was just a collective whole of our players coming together. Michael Farrar, who was a starter for us, who now plays Division III football at TCNJ, he shut out one of their Division III players, BJ Saliba, held him to 7 points. He was averaging like 24 points on the season. Just a tremendous effort by him. Our guys just digging deep and believing and just doing their role and playing their role, that it'll end up working for us.
I know we were joking about your dress and the suits and everything, but the picture that you're painting of that night, you coming with your professionalism and your even keeledness, a senior led team. It really sounds like a really special group that you had there, and just talking about that performance there, just to hold a 24-point kid to 7 points, right there, kids that are really able to step up and fill their roles. Sound like a special group.
I mean, they're a group that, I'll never forget. They're just awesome, kids, great basketball players, but even better people. There's still guys that when they come home from college now, they come to our games, they come and say hi, stop by practice, but that brings us back to like why you get into it. It's for moments like that in the relationships and being able to text them or shoot them a text, seeing how they're doing, and then answering you right away. Even now, I went up and saw George play at Ithaca, a couple times in the past 2 years. So it's just really, gratifying to have those relationships.
Yeah, and what's you were talking about Hackensack having 2 kids that went and played Division I, but Luca was a walk-on at Fordham. George plays basketball at Ithaca now, Division III school. Like you said, Mikey plays football down at college in New Jersey. Wellington, didn't he run track? Is he still run track at Connecticut?
Yeah, Wellington is a tremendous athlete that we had playing basketball.
Yeah, so you had athletes that were good at all sports and a lower level than the Hackensack kids, but kids that have gone on to the next level to play.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That shows something about their competitiveness and their desire and everything.
Chris, you bring up a good word there. They just were a competitive team. That's the best way to put it for them. They were super competitive. Talented, absolutely. As you just mentioned, Luca went on to walk on at Fordham, which is tremendous. Cresskill hasn't had a Division I basketball player in like 20 years.
Was Garrett the last one?
Yeah, Garrett Kreitz was, I guess, or could you count Matt Henry? Played 1 year at UNH.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Matt did. Yeah, okay.
So, that's still 20 years that we haven't had somebody play Division I basketball. And then, you get these guys that are just super competitive. And every day of practice was awesome to be a part of because they weren't letting up to each other at all. It was always going to be who can outdo the person next to them.
It's so neat to be able to hear what you shared earlier in this interview about wanting to give back, and then now to hear about how many kids are running track, playing football, doing all these things, and they're still in touch with you. Like, I just feel like, and this is right in my wheelhouse as an AD now, where when I first got into coaching, it was all about winning. We got to win, win, win. And now, 15 something years later, it's like, wait a minute, this is about providing experiences for kids, giving them opportunities to grow, band together and compete with each other, and then have them help each other to grow and go on and do things in their lives. Like, it's just the picture you're painting is really beautiful. And I can't thank you enough for everything you shared so far. It's amazing.
No, thank you. But I mean, Chris can probably attest to this. I feel that Cresskill is a special place. It's a small town, and, I'm contributing just a small fraction to it. And, the kids grow up in it and they've grown up together their whole lives playing together. That group of seniors had played together since they were like in 3rd or 4th grade. Their parents are very involved in a positive way. And, they kind of grow up in a very cultivated environment where they believe in each other and they believe in Cresskill, and they're willing to kind of put forth that effort. And we're very lucky too, where we have the support of our administration, our community. So it's really a great place for me to be back. And I feel that, because I was also fortunate enough to play through that obviously I want to make sure that these guys have an experience that I've had, even though I never got to the Jamboree semifinal as a player or to the sectional final as a player.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Dan, before you echoed it, but It's the culture that has been cultivated in Cresskill for 40 years that Marty started. And Brian's heard me talk about Coach Rivard before, and we mentioned him here and what a tremendous coach he was. But it's that, he cultivated that culture in that town from when he started there in the early 70s. And then Coach Dodo, who also played for Marty, continued it. And now you're another alum taking over the job and continued it. And it really is, it's one of those cultures that is a family atmosphere. And I was lucky enough to coach there for 5 years as a sort of an outsider, but I feel a part of that family. And I came to support you this year during your state playoff games. And whenever I'm back there, I see, Beth, the AD, and Mike, who's the superintendent now, and John Massaro, the principal, and all the people in town. They always, they still, they're like, "Oh, Coach de Blasio, how you doing?" So it's that whole atmosphere, that culture in Cresskill that makes it such a special place. And I think the winning just begets itself with that culture.
Yeah, and to even add on to that, for instance, last year, Coach Rivard had kind of stepped down, and he came back and was a volunteer assistant with me in my second year. So a guy that I had played for, that I was trying to kind of build off and continue his legacy, took the time to come and volunteer on my coaching staff. So I think that scenario right there just speaks to the relationships that people have in Cresskill.
760 wins, and he's volunteering as a coach.
Even more so, he's volunteering to his second year coach and taking orders from me. It was like very, very bizarre situation. I felt uncomfortable at many times.
I'll tell you, I had a similar experience down here. Coach George Glimpf was the first ever NBA player development coach. He left with Jermaine O'Neal, played at Eau Claire, and his grandson played for us at Ridgeview when I was the JV coach. And he wanted to help and volunteer. And so I had, at the time, Chris de Blasio and George Glimpf. I had the best JV staff in the country, but it was fascinating to be able to sit there. And he would and very gently would just come in and say, "Hey, Brian, do you mind if I take over this?" Yes. Oh, please take over the drill. So let me watch you work. Because he was a hero of mine, watching him growing up as I was cutting my teeth as a young coach, working camps and that type of thing. So being able to work with a legend like that, it's a real hoot.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you say it like that, because Coach Rivard was like the same way. He'd be like, "Gee, do you mind just maybe doing it this way?" My coach, you have 30 years experience. Like, please, whatever you want to do, tell me. Like, show me what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing that they can humble themselves like that. Brian makes a great point. Coach Glimpf was so helpful. And again, he's like Marty, Dan. He's a guy that has all kinds of state titles, gyms named after him, awards named after him, and he is revered in South Carolina high school coaching. And to have him in a JV gym and just, it was just tremendous.
That's awesome.
All right, so Dan, we like to wrap it up with this. If I ask the kids that have played for you, what is something that Coach Egerow says over and over again? It could be a mantra, it could be a coaching point, it could be something funny you say all the time. If I say, what is something Coach Egerow says over and over again, what would they tell me it is?
No cursing.
You say that?
Absolutely. If anyone curses on the floor, we automatically run. The entire team.
Wow.
What kind of run, and what's your go-to sprint? Somebody says a word. What are you having them do?
We go on the baseline and back, and we put 10.5 seconds on the clock. Everyone's got to make it. I would say that's easily the safest bet that I'll be remembered for, is the no cursing policy. And I would say second to that, which now is unfortunately with the current climate, I instituted for a long time of when you walk in a gym, you need to shake your coach's hands and, present yourself and say hi to everyone. Obviously now with what's going on, maybe that's going to have to change. But I mean, this is also beyond sports, where I just want them to become more of being adult-like. When you come in, you should go see the adults who are there, make sure that they know that you're there. You greet them, and then we can proceed forward. So I always, because at Cresskill, Chris, you know it, most of these kids are not going to play college sports. So if they can take away a great experience and then also something that they can use in their life, a life skill, like just simply going up to somebody and introducing yourself and being able to shake their hand and look them in the eyes, I thought that was just something that they could all easily, kind of not necessarily think about and just start doing, and it would really help them out.
I'll follow up on that one. Was that something that a coach did for you growing up that you just said, "Oh, I'm going to do that when I'm a coach," or did you decide to get on your own to do something like that? I love the handshake. I think that's fantastic. Where did that come from for you?
So the handshake, I got to say, I stole from Coach Dinicio. He was the coach at Northern Valley Demarest, another really highly regarded coach in Bergen County basketball. Won the Jamboree County title over at Bergen Catholic, and I really fell into a lucky situation with him. And he kind of guided me, especially early on when I was 23 years old, coaching a JV team. These guys were 4 years, 6 years younger than me that I'm coaching. So he helped me out tremendously, and he's the one that made them. I remember my first day. I get to Demarest. I haven't met any of the kids. I've only met Coach Dinicio a handful of times, and all of a sudden I get a line of 50 kids that are trying out, all shaking my hand before going to pick up a basketball.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. I tell you what, you have referenced Hoosiers, and then you have gone in depth about your soft skills training, your character ed training as a coach, and obviously the success on the floor sounds like it's taking care of itself. So, Coach, I just can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing what you've shared with us so far tonight. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thanks a lot, guys. I mean, as I said earlier, I was looking forward to this all day. Just being able to talk basketball has been great.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you again. And for my co-host, Chris de Blasio, I am Brian Rosefield, and thank you for listening to this episode of The Greatest Games.